which isn't realistic, right? Because he hasn't finished his struggles, or he hadn't finished his struggles, and you get that. I love the character Chandler Bing. I think the whole world does. Perry does a great job of telling you that Chandler is all of the things that he struggles with insecurity-wise, with women, with life, with not feeling good enough, and making him lovable at that same time. Obviously, his relationship with Monica helps that, but overall, he is made into this character that is always redemptive. And Matthew Perry, like a lot of human beings with insecurities, has been on he has been a bad guy to people in his life, and he owns it. He has been a bad guy to women, and he owns it. He has taken his family hostage through his issues with sobriety, and he owns it. That's really not why I struggle with liking him by the end. It is really more because while he admits to knowing that he was a bad actor, not a bad actor, but a bad actor in certain parts of his life with people in his life, at the same time, there's a lot of but, and it does not feel like he's really resolved all of his feelings around owning who he's been. Like, by the end of it, he's in a phase in life where he's visiting over and over again how, because of his struggles, because of his challenges in life, because of his usage of different drugs that have chemically altered what would be considered his normal emotional responses, he has damaged a lot of relationships with women in his life because of his fears of being left and his insecurities. He's damaged a lot of relationships with women in his life, and so he doesn't have a family, he doesn't have a wife, he doesn't have kids to come home to. He's in this beautiful life in this beautiful house, and he's all alone, and it's sad, and you feel sad for him. But at the same time, while he's visiting that line of thought, he's also continuously saying, within that framework where I've lost so much or I've thrown away so much, I'm still finding things that bring me joy. In particular, his work with addicts brings him a lot of joy, and the fact that he's been able to touch who knows how many lives through friends, through his relationship with AA, through his ability to mentor people and go to retreats and inspire people. And still he's saying, and this is all through a narrative where he's talking about how much he has, and I think in an ironic way, like, again, look at me, this mess in pieces, and in my sports car that I drove through somebody's house, you know, my ridiculously expensive sports car that I drove through somebody's house, in a $40 million house, and all that. He's painting this picture and saying, you know, and he's trying to build this redemptive arc but I can help these people, and my life is still meaningful, and I'm finding meaning in it. But at the same time, I'm still asking God, like, there must be more. Like, I'm still alive. I have this wreckage I've caused, and I'm still alive, and it's gotta be because there is some higher purpose. I know it, and I believe in God, and that it's going to be revealed to me at some time. And you're just like, what are you saying? What else? Like, you're alive. You have done all these horrible things to other people, to people's career opportunities, to people's just lives in general, upending their lives or making them worried. You've literally taken all these people who loved you hostage. You have thrown away so many opportunities. You've had an amazing career still. You are financially more secure than so many people. You have the resources, the opportunity to help so many people, and you're getting to help so many people, and you are alive, and you're still looking for this higher there must be this higher calling. And it just rubs me the wrong way, because sometimes living a great life is just living. You're not special. None of us are special. We are special in and of the fact that we are who we are, but we're just all living our experience at the end of it. And then that's also kind of going hand in hand. It's kind of like an entitlement thing, I guess you would say. It's going hand in hand with the other thing that really bothered me throughout his story, as he starts to talk about his relationship with sobriety, and he's been in rehab 65 times, and he knows all of these medication dosages, usages, things to help you detox, and things that he's personally been through where the medical complex of sobriety has failed him in different ways when he was really sick. He was trying to tell them he was sick and they wouldn't let him leave because they thought he was faking, and it turned out that he really was. He ended up with a colostomy bag, all of this insanity. He probably would have died if he hadn't forced his way out of that facility. Also, in other instances where facilities have told him, like, we're not giving you any drugs to come off of all of the drugs that you're on, you just need to get off of them, and he's like basically saying, like, that could kill me, like, you people are trying to kill me. And I don't know if it's because he tells that same version of the story so many times, because he's been in these scenarios so many times, but by the end of it, you want to say to him, they're not trying to kill you. The medical world is imperfect. Doctors, whether you're in rehab or not, whatever kind of doctors they are, kill people by accident all of the time. It is an imperfect organization, the medical business, right? And by virtue of the fact that you have been exposed to it so many times, you are going to meet a lot of people who are incompetent or do not know all of the answers, or are doing the best that they can with the information that they're given, or are working for a conglomerate or structure that is money making, and that's what they're trying to do. You've been there so many times to kind of be negative about these people and lightly acknowledging that you are the one trying to kill you, and you have been trying to kill you for a very long time. Like, you know, he's like, I know that I put myself there, but god damn it, you know, whatever he's saying at that point in whichever story it is, you almost get the sense that he's using rehab as a way to keep himself alive for all of these years, despite all of the things that he's done to himself with drugs and alcohol. And it is a sickness, and I'm very aware of how difficult it is for some people to survive that sickness. But it's almost because of the resources that he has. His real bottom is so far down because of his ability to harness this structure that can continuously try to save him over and over again, that you just get exhausted by the end of the telling. And especially for those of us who have personally known of stories of people struggling with substance abuse who can't afford to get so low so many times and can't afford second, third, fourth, 80th chances so many times, you just want the story to be done by the end of it. Like, he is no longer a sympathetic character. You're not even really rooting for him to win. You just kind of want him to stop talking, or you wish that he had finished the story 2 chapters ago. I don't know, which isn't realistic, right? Because he hasn't finished his struggles, or he hadn't finished his struggles, and you get that. Matthew Perry is a man who had a difficult childhood, had issues, thought that drugs or alcohol could solve those issues, or that exterior or external things could solve those issues, like a lot of people do. It's just, again, because of his access to resource and how many times he has harnessed that resource to continue doing what he's been doing, to continue being harmful to himself and others. By the end, he has just exhausted you. And right when you're expecting this last horror story to be the one that leads into the grand finale, you just tumble down a hole into another pit that you didn't realize was there, which I guess could be technically like a euphemism for drug and alcohol abuse to begin with, because right when you think you're at the bottom, there's a whole other layer of misery waiting for you. But most people just don't have a golden chariot to drive them out of that pit every time. So now that we've talked about some no's, we're going to talk about some redemption with Spare, as with the Netflix special, as with his conversations, his and Megan's conversations with Oprah. Harry, also in his book, is very vocal about the racism that Megan has experienced. He's very honest about who the monarchy has been. Obviously, it's complicated by the fact that he's lived off of that system, and I think he tries to resolve that a little bit by showing you how it's not glamorous, how his living conditions haven't always been the best, how he's an idiot who hasn't known very much, and he's been learning as he's grown the way that the rest of us have. And when I say idiot, I mean it in the sense of, you know, when you're young, when you're a kid, you don't know world things. I don't mean him as a person, but he, as a grown man, fully has recognized that there are these things that are wrong. When his relationship with Meghan was first brought into the public sphere in Britain, he was horrified by the amount of racism that came out of it, and said over and over to his father father and his brother, I need to do something about this. Why can't we do something about this? And their responses were that we can't because we didn't do it for our women. And that reminds you, back when Kate was first coming on the scene, she got a bunch of flack because her family were commoners instead of being some royal rich princess from a foreign land. And she got her share of things. Obviously, Camilla has gotten plenty of abuse for having been embroiled in the situation with Charles and Diana, for being a divorced woman. It's been complicated for everybody, but the point that Harry made, and he continues to try to make, is now we're dealing with a whole other level of abuse because there's racism added to this. And we as an establishment have a history of exploiting people of color. And this is an opportunity for us to really take a stand and go about this narrative differently. But because the monarchy has this kind of policy of not speaking out, they just seem to not have been able or willing to have taken this stand. And there is also some undertone there and things that he kind of alludes to of maybe a blindness to the reality of some of this. And this is, you know, a white, patriarchal, monarchical establishment. Monarchical a word? I'm not sure. I think it is though. But, you know, they've been enslaving people of color and exploiting them for hundreds of years. Why would today be any different? And just because the public is writing, you know, articles calling Meghan Markle gangster royalty or some such ridiculousness that they're making up and questioning, you know, the mixture in the royal blood of these others, you know, it's horrifying, but kind of expected because they're a white, extremely exploitative establishment. But the fact that he's talking about it is important. The fact that it is an open conversation is important. And it's making people angry, so he's doing something right. Or at least that's the way I see it. And then the redemptive portion of Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, I think honestly is that it really is a entire life's involvement in the world of Alcoholics Anonymous, in this community that has supported and saved so many people. Matthew Perry references the Big Book. He references the way that some of the tools that he's been given as part of that community have really helped him as a person. He's seen it change people's lives. He's still hopeful that it is going to continue to change his life. That if there is a redemptive quality to be found throughout some of the destruction, is that it really is kind of a thank you letter to Alcoholics Anonymous for having stuck with him through a lifetime of pain and struggle and some really, really challenging scenarios that he and others have been put in because of the life that he's led. And any grace and any forgiveness that he's given to himself, he has given to himself through God and through the community of Alcoholics Anonymous. So in that, I think that therein lies his ability to find some focus in life. He also talks about, again, how he's been involved in so many different ways to help other addicts and how that motivates him. That's why he wanted to write this book, so that people did not feel like they were the only ones struggling. That is at least what he has said. And I'm hopeful for him that that program in particular continues to provide at least a way through whatever it is that he is still struggling with. Now, I really feel like this video was about an entitled man and a man who was a bit funnier than we thought he was, and that the two were not who we originally thought they were going to be. You might think I'm wrong. You might have a completely different opinion. You might want to set me on fire for saying ugly things about Chandler Bing. All I can say is I'm just glad I didn't read this before I met Chandler Bing, because babe, I don't know how that relationship would have turned out. The funny thing I will leave you with is actually both books reference Groundhog Day at different junctions in their story. Michael Keaton is one of Matthew Perry's heroes as an actor, as he should be, as he deserves to be. But Prince Harry also talks about Groundhog's Day. And I feel like it's just such a universal theme. So many of us have felt like we have lived the same day over and over again in a good or a bad way. Prince Harry talks about it in the sense of the paparazzi and the never-ending stalking and how things just turn into a circus for him because of that aspect of his life over and over again. So clearly negative. And Matthew Perry, it's positive, but it's also bittersweet. He describes what his Groundhog Day would be if he could live the same day over and over again. And it is a day that he shared at the beginning of his love affair when he was on top of the world from Friends with Julia Roberts, when he had all the hope in the world. And it describes so much of our young lives when we have the world before us and we have not yet managed to set anything on fire yet. So I love that. I love that for Michael Keaton, and I love that for us. I am going to say that I actually enjoyed both books. I just was very frustrated with Matthew Perry at the end of his story. And I think that he's frustrated with himself too. So I think that's how we were supposed to feel. He's a very intelligent, intuitive, I want to say conversationalist, artist. He knows how to have a conversation with people that he's trying to convey a message to. And so I think that he was trying to convey his own feelings about himself through all of that. Maybe subconsciously, consciously, I don't know. But he conveyed them. But because it just got so rough by the end, I am going to have to give him 2.5 pandas. 2.5 pandas, and it might have been 2. But we'll go with 2.5 pandas because he really has lived an extraordinarily challenging life, whether it was himself facing those challenges in his life or not, and the fact that he's overcome them and is still here is incredible. For Spare, I'm gonna give Prince William and his ghostwriter, because the ghostwriter needs to get his fair share of the pandas, because it's just a very well written story. I'm gonna give them 3.5 pandas because it really surprised me and how good it was. And it's not the most amazing thing I've ever read. I don't know if I'm ever gonna give anybody 5 pandas, and even getting 4, you've got to be pretty incredible. But 3.5 is a solid nod to just a very well written piece of art, and it's deserving, and it was complex and simple, and it made you laugh, it made you sad, and you were cheering for Harry by the end. Absolutely 100%. Harry and Meghan. But the story was about Harry, and he made it about him. He was the star of the show, as he should. You just really want him to have a happily ever after because he deserves it, as does Matthew Perry. I hope that he finds someone, even if the someone is himself, to love him as much as he deserves to be loved. So we're wrapping up another video. I'm really happy that you guys are still here. I really hope that you stick around, subscribe, like, leave a comment, tell me what you thought, fight with me if you want to fight. You don't want none of this, but show up next time because I'll still be here. Bye guys. Bye book friends. So why release the video? Welcome to the afterward. Why release the video? What benefits does it have? And I would say the reason why I still wanted to release it is because it was announced he had primarily passed away due to the level of ketamine in his system. Ketamine is one of the several drugs that he had been taking as a part of his effort to stay sober. A large part of his memoir is him being given drugs to wean him off of other drugs, and then his issues with abuse with those drugs that he's been given. His levels of tolerance would build, and he would end up abusing those drugs at levels that were not healthy for him. And ketamine was one of them. He was taking it, according to the reports, for depression and anxiety, but the amount that he had in his system was enough to put you under general anesthesia if you were having surgery. It was not anything that he would have been prescribed, any quantity that he would have been prescribed. And it goes back to what I said in the beginning, that it's not surprising, but it's startling, because I feel like drug use, drug abuse, and the negative impact that it has on people is so prolific, especially in this country, that when we say things like it could kill you, or you could die, or I could die from it, or when we're having those conversations, I don't feel like there's a depth of real and present danger that people admit to. I feel like in his memoir, you could see clearly that Matthew was doing a lot of negotiating with people in the medical field about how much he needed to be given so that he wouldn't get sick in trying to get away from these other drugs, not thinking that his sickness had taught him the perfect verbiage to put him in a situation where he was going to continuously harm himself. That tendency to negotiate, to keep the monster there, is so common because drug addiction is an illness. It is a literal monster that takes over your life, takes over your thoughts, takes over the things that you really want, need, and care about. And it becomes a sole focus of all of your time and attention. And like with Matthew Perry, you'll have lived a life where so many other wonderful things have happened to you, for you, where there's such beauty and happiness if you could only reach past the veil, if you could only escape the prison that this monster is holding you in. And so often, no matter how many people we lose, no matter how many stories we hear of what the end most likely is, so many of us just ignore the reality and we feel like it's not going to happen to us will be the exception. After hearing of his death, even after hearing of the leading cause of his death, I feel like I'm still so sad. As much as their fame for Friends had permeated the story and how much Matthew in particular was known to make jokes about it, I feel like he never really knew how important he was. He was searching for this feeling of purpose. I don't really think he realized he was there, or maybe no matter what, he was never going to feel like he was there. I don't change my feelings on any of my analysis around how he was approaching his life in sobriety. I feel like what we read was an addict still in full throes of his addiction, negotiating and justifying, still struggling to turn the mirror on himself and really figure out what he needed to live a different way. I think it's complicated, obviously, by the fact that he was extremely wealthy and had so much access to resources that were institutional and otherwise that were willing to aid and abet the monster of addiction and causing him all of this pain and suffering. I really wish it had been different. I feel like such an important part of a lot of our formative years isn't here anymore. An idea of someone so self-deprecating and flawed and funny through it all that made us still want to smile through it all, and being gone, I think, is one of the bigger losses that we've had as a society from the arts world. And I will say the version he was showing up as of himself was a difficult one. It was a difficult one. It was a difficult one to like. And he struggled with even liking himself for a really long time. And I think that we can all have a bit more compassion for that, myself included. And I think it's really hard to struggle with really wishing that something was different and not being able to do a damn thing to change it. That's the end of my comments. I really thank you guys for staying this long. If you made it to this part, I thank you for watching the video. And if you're mad at me for anything that I said, I totally understand. I hope I'll still see you next time. Bye, guys.